Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. The podcast I did yesterday on the couch here in my living room, it seemed like it got a pretty good response, so I figured I'd follow up with another one. Why not, you know? But anyway, today I want to talk about something very interesting. It was a case from 1914 that happened in Finland, and it involved alien creatures, people seeing alien creatures, and it was a story that wasn't told to a UFO investigator until 1972. And basically, what I got out of this story was a very interesting message, apparently, that these beings had given to this Finnish woman, and that's one of the things I found interesting. And by the way, let me just I printed this article out so I could read it here. This was actually I got this from Reddit, humanoid encounters on Reddit, which is one of the better places if you're interested in reading about people having encounters with aliens and Bigfoot and all that kind of stuff. All kinds of weird encounters with weird creatures. I would have to say that humanoid encounters on Reddit is pretty decent. Pretty decent place to check out. And one of the person that posted this story, Johan Harry 74. He's been posting a lot of different things. This is like part 12 of his of a series that he's been posting on there. UFO, humanoid, close encounter cases from the Nordic countries, and this was one of the ones that he dug up from 1914. And I'll leave a link for this, but there's a lot of other stories that this guy's been posting, and so I that's why I'm recommending to check this out if you're interested in this kind of thing. If you're interested in encounters with alien creatures, similarly, how Preston Dennett does his show every week. Every Friday he has this episode where he talks about numerous different encounters with aliens, UFO encounters. He's mostly interested in encounters with humanoids, with the alien creatures themselves. And this guy here, that's what he did with this series that he posted here on Reddit, the subreddit Humanoid Encounters. But anyway, this is what it says. It says, there are so many interesting cases from the Nordic countries that need to be told, so I have decided to continue the series with a few more episodes after the special edition. Yeah, he just posted this latest part yesterday. And this story here, he calls it the humanoids in the sphere. It happened in Vitis, southwest Finland, the end of August in 1914. And here's what it says. In his book, Aliens and Humanoids, Finnish UFO researcher Tapani Kuningas recounted a case he learned about during a UFO seminar in Turku in 1972. An elderly man came up to him and told him a strange story he had experienced as a child. It was only many years later that the man realized that he had seen what later came to be called flying saucers and UFOs. Akseli Coppola was 10 years old in 1914, and he spent some of that summer on the farm with his grandmother, Maria Felt. It was a warm summer day, and they were inside the cottage to eat lunch when it started to get dark outside, and it felt like a sudden storm was coming on, or that a solar eclipse had made the sky turn black. At the same time, there was a loud bang. Akseli and Maria looked out the window and could see how a brightly shining wall came from the east that soon turned into a white glowing sphere. It descended over the garden, and when it reached the height of the window, it began to move toward them across the yard. The shining sphere slowly slid toward the window and then stopped a couple of meters or 7 feet away from them. They could now see how the sphere also seemed to be metallic, and in the middle of it an oval window opened up. And then he actually had a really interesting picture here that an artistic interpretation. I'm assuming he did this using AI, but it's pretty good. I'll have it on the screen right now so you can check it out. I thought that this was a pretty good AI picture that he posted along with this story. Anyway, the article continues here. He says, two beings now appeared in the opening, and only their upper bodies and heads could be seen. One of the humanoids stood in the middle of the opening, and the other stood to the side, slightly behind but still fully visible. Akseli perceived them as male beings with unusually large heads in relation to the body, especially the one standing in the middle. The width of the shoulders, however, was proportional to the head. Akseli thought the being standing to the side was more dwarf-like and uglier than the being in the middle. In fact, terribly ugly. The quote man end quote in the middle looked quite old, and his face was broad and angular, but his eyes looked friendly. Axeli was now afraid that the beings would jump out of the sphere and enter the kitchen, but his grandmother assured him that there was no danger and that they had only come to say something. A quick smile then appeared on the lips of the being in the middle, and then it began to speak. Its lips and mouth made speech movements, but Axeli could not hear any sound. Now it is talking, it is saying something, Axeli shouted eagerly. But at the same time as the boy said this, the being stopped talking and he disappeared further into the sphere at the same time as the oval window closed in front of him. When the sphere had closed, a loud roar was heard again, and then a bright flash of light came. After this, the sphere rose into the sky and quickly disappeared toward the west. The observation had only lasted a few minutes, but after this, Axeli felt very tired and went to bed. He fell asleep and did not wake up again until the evening. It seemed as if his grandmother had predicted the event and knew that the beings were coming. She told Axeli that the humanoids were not angels who came from heaven, but came from a distant place. They had come to Earth in a large skyship, and the sphere they had flown down to the house with was only used for short trips. She also explained that the beings had large heads because they were much more intelligent than us humans, but they were distantly related to us. They also lived much longer than us humans. Grandma also said that they had delivered important messages to her and foretold future events, and she claimed that these humanoids wanted to protect humanity. It was obvious that Axeli's grandmother knew a lot about these beings, and she had apparently had contact with them several times before. She called them the air people. The air people. What do you think of that? 1914 this happened, and this story was related to a UFO researcher. Not all the way, it was in 1972. So if this kid was 10, so he would have been pushing 70 at the time when he finally told this story to a UFO researcher. Very interesting story. But the idea, okay, first off, there's a lot of different interesting aspects to this story. For one thing, I think it's interesting that the beings looked like it was talking, and the kid noticed this, right, that this thing looked like it was talking, but you couldn't hear anything. There was nothing being said as far as the kid was could knew, right? But the grandmother was apparently picking up on something. You know, I guess it would be something like this. I guess I'll have to do some editing later on to this demonstration I'm going to try right now. Basically, it would be like something like this.
Do not be afraid. We are the air people. We are here to protect humanity. Our craniums are larger naturally because we need more space to house our advanced brains.
Basically, the lips were moving, but there was no sound. But maybe there was some sort of a telepathic message going into the mind of the grandmother that these beings are here to protect humanity. That's what they were telling these people back in 1914, apparently, according to this story, if it's true. And that's the thing. How do you know? This is anecdotal. There's one witness. He's an old guy, meets a UFO researcher in 1972, shares this story. Is it true? Possibly, because here's why it's possibly true. Because these kinds of things happen. I mean, we know that there's other beings here with us. There's no question about it. We have the evidence that shows that there's something here. There's enough people now on this planet right now. Right now, there's a lot of people who've encountered these creatures and/or their craft, and they will tell you, yes, there's no question about it as far as I'm concerned, because I saw one of these things myself with my own eyes. Some people don't want to admit that publicly, but a lot of them, if you were to talk to I don't know, let's say 100 people. I mean, I wonder how many people out of that 100 would say that they did have an encounter, a very close encounter with a UFO and/or one of the UFO's occupants, right? I would imagine that number would be I think it would be significant. I would have to say, if people were being truthful, I think that you probably get around maybe 20%, something like that, I would think. At least. That's what I think. I think probably out of 100 people, I would say probably 20 people have had some sort of a weird encounter, at least. That's just me spitballing here. I don't know that for sure. That's just what I think in my mind. I mean, there's so many people, because here's why. A lot of times I meet people, and when they find out what I do, a lot of times they'll say, oh yeah, I saw a UFO once, people who really don't have that big of an interest in it, but they did have their own encounter. So, you do get that sometimes. You get that a lot, actually, when you run into somebody who is not really interested in it, but then they find out, oh yeah, you do a podcast about UFOs. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think I saw one time. Oh yeah, or somebody else in their family saw something or had an encounter. You hear these stories all the time. There's a lot of people you run into, and they'll tell you their own little story. So I would have to imagine that probably, I would say 20, at least 20% of people on this planet have had some sort of sighting or encounter. And who's to say that something like this didn't happen in 1914? It sounds reasonable, right? I mean, this sounds very similar to some things that we would hear later on. Sometimes these beings do tell us that they're trying to at least protect the planet. A lot of times it seems like they're worried about our welfare. They're worried about our technology. They seem to be very worried about our nuclear weapons. They seem to be very worried about that. So obviously, this seems to be a possibility. Maybe at the time they're just there to protect humanity. Maybe they're there actually to keep tabs on humanity. Maybe that's what was really going on, and maybe they were just telling a little white lie that they're not here to protect you. But we're just making sure nothing gets out of hand with you guys. Maybe that's what it was. But anyway, the message was we're here to protect humanity. And I think it's a really weird story. Can you imagine seeing, it's like, you're 10 years old, you're hanging out with your grandmother, and all of a sudden some silver sphere comes floating out of the sky, hovering 7 feet from the kitchen window, and you're looking out at this thing, and there's an oval window opens up in it, and looking out at you are two definitely non-human intelligent creatures staring back at you. Could you imagine how awe-inspiring, frightening, the different emotions you would feel with something like that happening? There are other interesting aspects to this story too. I thought the grandmother telling her grandson, hey, they had come to Earth in a large sky ship, and that the sphere they had flown down to the house with was only used for short trips. I mean, a lot of us think this is what we've been talking about all these years. If you think about the 1964 incident that happened out in California with the hunter named Donald Shrum, he saw a giant mothership, and the mothership, a door opened up on the mothership, and smaller flying saucer came out of it. Sometimes people see giant cylinders in the sky, and then flying saucers or smaller objects are coming out of it or going into them. So this is something that happens. These are the kinds of reports that we've heard over the years. And to read a story of an event that occurred in 1914 that's very similar to a lot of different encounters and sightings that people would have in the years to follow, that's pretty impressive, I think. And also that she called them the air people. I like that. These people are the air people. That's what they're and between that grandmother and her grandson, that's what they called these people, air people. They're the air people. Imagine. Very, very interesting stuff. And also the fact that they had large heads, right? Because that makes their brains are bigger. They're more intelligent. It's like this all makes sense, right? A lot of us think the same thing right now, right? These things have big heads because they have bigger brains. They're obviously more intelligent. I mean, whether they're biological robots or not, that's an argument for a different day. Even if they are just biological robots, some of these things, right? That means they were made by somebody and they're biological, right? They're not human, and they were made by some other alien being. So that's an argument for another day. I just think it's interesting that that's what they were saying this. The grandmother was telling this 10-year-old back in 1914. Yeah, their heads are bigger. They're smarter than us, and that's why their heads are bigger, because their brains are larger and they're just way more intelligent than we are. I found that interesting, and also the fact that they were distantly related. They were told that they're distantly related. Does that mean maybe? And again, this goes back to the theory that maybe the reason we're here is because of them. Maybe this hybridization program that we talk about. Maybe this thing was started a long time ago. Maybe this is what caused us to be here. Maybe for all we know, we were some sort of Bigfoot creatures in the long past, and this is the most updated upgrade right now. What we are right now. Maybe that's what this is all about. Maybe they made us. Another interesting aspect of this story was how the kid, for some reason, felt very tired after this thing went away. and he had to go to bed, so he slept for the rest of the afternoon and didn't wake up until the evening. You also wonder, did something else happen? Maybe was there an abduction that might have happened? He doesn't even know. Maybe him and his grandmother were abducted after this event, after they thought it was gone. Maybe they didn't know that the creatures never left and they were still there the whole time, and maybe they were abducted and brought into the craft and examined, and the whole 9 yards, and then placed back in the cottage, and he wakes up later on. That's always possible too. Maybe he didn't even know that there was. I mean, why did they show up like this? Just to talk to the grandmother, to send her a message, we're here to protect humanity, see you later, and then fly away. No, I wonder if there might be a little bit more to this story that this kid didn't realize even occurred. So you have to think about that. So I just thought this was a good story to talk about, because it's something that happened long before 1947, before the UFO wave began in earnest, and really has never stopped. So I just thought it was something to share. In fact, yesterday's show, when I was talking about a case that happened in 1870, where there was a ship at sea that had saw a large flying saucer in the sky for like a half hour, and then they lost sight of it when it got dark. And here, this is a case from 1914 where some sort of a craft comes down, and apparently the grandmother knew about motherships and everything back then in 1914. So apparently she learned something from these beings. What exactly, I don't know. If this was it, I don't know. It could have been more. There could have been more to this that they don't even know, that they've never understood. But sometimes, as we know, these beings do abduct people, and who knows what happens. Anyway, I thought that this was a very interesting story to share, particularly because of the time when it allegedly occurred. 1914, that's a far cry from 1947. But again, it goes to show that, these beings were apparently keeping tabs on us, for centuries, probably, before they showed up in force, or they let us, apparently letting us know that, hey, we're here too. And maybe that's what this is all about. Maybe this is what's going on here. Like I was talking about yesterday, they came here a long time ago. They settled here. Maybe they just decided, hey, we'll just let them beings, do whatever they're doing. We're not going to interfere with their development, not that much anyway. We'll try to stay out of it for the most part, and we'll just mind our own business. We'll just exist under the sea, under the ground, wherever, but we'll stay out of their way. But then when we started using atomic bombs, and then they advanced to hydrogen bombs, and we're talking, the nuclear weapons, all of that stuff concerned them, and that's what brought them out, because they're on this planet too. Maybe they're concerned about that. They're not concerned about us or what we do to each other. Maybe they are, but maybe they're more concerned about what we do to the planet. Maybe they're, in a way, the way they protect humanity, if they are protecting humanity, maybe the way they're doing it is trying to warn us, hey, stay away from nuclear weapons, because if you don't, eventually someone's going to do something, and it's going to destroy the world. It's going to make this place uninhabitable, and everyone's going to die, and it's going to be really sad. It's going to be a sad day for all. Anyway, I just want to say thank you all for joining me today. Until next time.